Today, one of the most striking facts about the global economy is that countries are drowning in debt. The United States alone has tens of trillions of dollars in debt. Europe's largest economies and developing economies also continue to operate while carrying similarly high levels of debt. The interesting question is, how is this possible? Think about real life. If you're drowning in debt, it becomes almost impossible to carry out even the basic activities necessary to live. You might end up living on the streets, sleeping wherever you can, and eating whatever you can find. We can take Delonte West as an example. That's the natural outcome because when you're buried in debt, you have to stop many of your normal activities. So then, how are these countries able to keep functioning? If the world's biggest economies are in debt, are the creditors the smaller economies? Of course not. They're also drowning in debt. So then, who is the creditor? The truth is, debt isn't just borrowed money. It's also an important part of investment, trust, and economic growth. So here's the question: if everyone is in debt, who is the creditor? Don't think of this like debt between individuals. Normally, one person borrows money and another person lends it. The creditor is obvious and so is the lender. The logic is simple. But in the global economy, it doesn't work that way. To understand this system, let's go back to where it all began. How did debt first appear? The first humans didn't use money. They traded goods through barter, but barter didn't always work. So people relied on trust to receive what they needed. That was the earliest form of debt. Then writing was invented, making it possible to keep records of debts. You can actually see these debt records on clay tablets from the Sumerian civilization. Now that we've understood the beginning and the logic behind debt, let's return to what really concerns us: government borrowing. The first governments borrowed money from wealthy merchants to finance wars and military expeditions. That's how governments began borrowing. Then, during the 1600s, something called the modern bond appeared. Governments were now saying, "Give me money today and I'll pay you interest every year." That's how modern government borrowing was born. Today, debt is no longer just money borrowed out of necessity. It's one of the fundamental mechanisms that keeps the economy running. And now everyone is part of this mechanism. Governments, large corporations, small corporations, developed countries, developing countries, banks, everyone is inside this system. Today, the global economy is built on continuously rolled over debt. Now let's return to our other question: who are the creditors? In reality, many of the creditors are also countries that are deeply in debt themselves. Take the United States as an example. In many ways, America is also indebted to itself. If we look at the distribution of U.S. debt, the largest foreign creditor is Japan, with roughly $1 trillion. China follows with roughly $800 billion. Yes, that's the debt owed to foreign investors. But around $30 trillion is held within the country itself. So in many ways, America is once again indebted to itself. The U.S. Treasury issues bonds. The system actually isn't as complicated as you might think. When the government needs money, it issues bonds. Banks and investment funds buy them. Then, when necessary, the central bank steps in and buys back some of those bonds from the market. So the money keeps circulating within the same system. And this system doesn't exist only in the United States. Many countries operate in exactly the same way. This brings us to perhaps the most important question in the entire video. What if the system was designed this way from the beginning? Do governments actually plan to pay off all of their debt? Government debt usually doesn't work like a bill that's paid once and disappears. Instead, it works more like a subscription that is constantly renewed. The goal of the system isn't to eliminate debt, it's to keep rolling it over. That's why interest becomes the price paid to keep the system running. Today, a large part of the global economy operates because of this cycle. The moment it stops, it can't survive. The modern financial system works in much the same way. New bonds are issued, old bonds are rolled over, investors buy them, central banks step in whenever necessary, and the wheel keeps turning.